Good evening. You're welcome to today's broadcast. My name is the Jesutola. This is Reform Niger Television. We'll be doing a very interesting program today. We have titled it Reformed Controversies. And I felt that we should look at this topic because of an article that I found. I found it through our brother, Moses Jesutola. Unfortunately, Brother Moses is having challenges connecting because there is poor power supply at his station. So my prayer is that he would ultimately join the broadcast. But if not, I think what is most important presently is that we are able to go over the article. The article, thank you, theologizing subject. Thank you for joining the broadcast. The article was written by Pastor John Frames, who is a leading theologian and pastor in the United States. And I felt that he did an excellent job analyzing the issue of controversy in Reformed cycles. Now, Reformed theology is the doctrine that emerged from the 16th century Reformation with three leading men. First with Martin Luther, who was contemporary with Ulrich Zwingli, and then later on with John Calvin. They broke out of the Roman Catholic Church and they went on to form Reformed churches. Luther led Lutheran churches. Calvin led Reformed churches, which will later be called Calvinist churches, and so on. But there was an underlying theme in Reformed Christianity. And what is this? It was the fact that they came from battles, okay? They came from battles upon battles, theological battles, even physical battles. Between 1618 and 1648, Europe experienced something called the 30-Year War. Okay, and that war was as a result of countries trying to dominate other countries and either trying to make them Catholic or Protestant. Okay, at the end of the war, they had to agree that European countries had to agree to something called tolerance. So that was the first act of tolerance. Thank you, Zwingli. Yes. That was the first act of tolerance that we had in the churches. So today I want to read the article. Unfortunately, the article is quite fine print, so I would not be able to put it up. But if you are joining us through YouTube, you very likely see the link to the article, so you can click on it and read along as I read. Okay. The article is written again by John Frame. John Frame it was published on the 6th of June, 2012, which is some 13 years ago, but still quite relevant to our discussion today. Okay, Dr. John M. Frame is Professor of Systematic Theology and Philosophy of Reformed Theological Seminary, RTS, Orlando, Florida. I don't know whether he's still teaching there. The article is titled Machen's Warrior Children. He's still going to talk about Machen a little bit, and I'm just going to go straight into reading the article because it's quite long, and I want to try to finish it because he looked at 21 theological subjects that Reformed people usually debate, and the perspective he provided. Okay, so our brother Moses has joined. He has joined. Let me just try to see if I can put it on. No, this is me. Moses, just give me a moment. I'm going to add you now. Okay, so Brother Moses, thank you for joining up. Brother Moses is joining via audio alone because there's very poor power supply at his side. Brother Moses, can you say hello to our viewers?
All right, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Good evening to
Okay.
everyone. I'm glad to be here today. I just want to apologize for coming a bit late. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yes, it's okay. Thank you so much for joining up, even despite the challenge. Now, the article is very lengthy. It was discovered by our brother Moses Jesutola. Moses Jesutola is a student of Institute of Pastoral and Theological Studies at Egbe, Kogi State. He's in his final year, hoping to graduate this year. And it's just a brilliant article. There was a controversy in Nigerian reformed cycles, and while everybody was chipping in their thoughts, he said that he felt that Machen's warrior children, which was this article we're going to read, is something that is going to help every one of us deal with the problem. So, Moses, as I read, please, I'm going to get some points. I will just ask for your perspective on those. I expect that you have read the article. Have you read it again?
Yes, sir. Yeah. I did. I read it.
Okay, all right. So we're starting with an abstract. Reads, and I quote: From 1923 to the present, the movement begun by J. Gresham Machen and Westminster Theological Seminary has supplied the theological leadership for the conservative evangelical reformed Christians in the United States. Under that leadership, conservative Calvinists made a strong stand against liberal theology. But having lost that theological battle in the Presbyterian Church, USA, they turned inward to battle amongst themselves about less issues, and which were less important, in some cases far less important than liberalism. This essay describes 21 of these issues with some subdivisions and offers some brief analysis and evaluations. It concludes by raising some questions for the Reformed community to consider. Was it right to devote so much of the church time and effort to these theological battles? Did the disputants follow biblical standards for resolution of these issues? Was the quality of thought in these polemics worthy of the Reformed tradition of scholarship? Should the Reformed community be willing to become more inclusive to tolerate greater theological differences than many of the polemists have wanted? Okay, so these are the questions he asked. Let me just quickly give an overview. J. Gresham Machen was a leading theologian that lived from the 19th century into the 20th century. One of the challenges of the 19th century with theology in the 19th century was the encroachment of liberal theology into the churches, into evangelical churches, reformed churches. With the writing of a man called, what's that name now? The Origin of Species, that book written by Charles Darwin. Okay, many churches began to give, thoughts to liberal theology, and liberal theology in the sense that anything is liberal. Liberal theology is anything that doesn't make Scripture central. Okay, that does not make Scripture central to Christianity. That's liberal theology. Okay, so they began to give a lot of space for liberal theology. But there's a sense in it that is what killed Charles Haddon Spurgeon when he began to battle that doctrine through a series of articles that he wrote and even messages that he preached on the downgrade controversy. Okay, Gresham was a student in Europe where there were lots of liberal theologians, and then he came to the US, and by the time he came to US, he spent all of his life battling liberal theology. But by the time he was dying, or he was going close to his grave, okay, others took up the battle. But when they lost the battle in the Presbyterian Church, they turned the battle against each other. Okay, so that's the reason why we're looking at this thing. When should we give space for polemists or for controversies, and how should we deal with it? We have 21 of them. If we can deal with all these 21, I can assure you we would have gone a very long way. Okay, so I'm going to start the article. J. Gresham Machen, a lifelong bachelor, left no biological children, but many spiritual children. The story of American conservative evangelical reformed theology in the 20th century is likely the story of those children. Machen, 1881 to 1937, 2 degrees at Johns Hopkins University and Princeton's Theological Seminary, then studied for a time in Germany. He returned to teach New Testament at Princeton's Seminary. His faith and theological stability had been somewhat shaken by his experience with liberal German Bible critics and theologians, particularly Wilhelm Hamann, but in time he became a vigorous and cordial defender of conventional Presbyterianism taught at Princeton by such stalwarts as Charles Hurd, B.B. Warfield, and Vorse. In a book called The Virgin Birth of Christ and another called The Origin of Paul's Religion, Gresham attacked mostly German critics of scriptures, arguing the historical authenticity of the New Testament. In 1923, Gresham published Christianity and Liberalism, an attack on the liberal or modernist theology espoused by those critics and by many in American churches. This book argued not only that liberalism was wrong, but that it was a different religion from Christianity. According to Machen, Christianity and liberalism were antithetically opposed in their concept of the doctrine of doctrine, God and man, the Bible, Christ, salvation, and the church. The liberals thought that doctrine is secondary to experience, God is father to all apart from redemption, that the Bible is a book of mere human testimonies, that Christ is merely a moral example, the salvation is to be found by following that example, and that the church should accept this liberal gospel as orthodox. Christian Seminary was under the authority of the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church USA. In 1928, that body determined to reorganize the seminary to make it represent a broad range of opinion in the church, including liberalism, against which Machen had written. In response, Machen left the seminary together with colleagues like Robert Wilson and Oswald Alice. These scholars founded Westminster Theological Seminary in Philadelphia and added to its faculty such younger men as R.B. Kuiper, Ned Stonehouse, Alan McRae, Paul Woolley, Cornelius Van Til, and John Murray. Machen intended that Westminster would continue the confessional Presbyterian tradition of what would then be called the Old Princeton. In 1936, Machen left the PCUSA after the denomination suspended him from the ministry for his involvement in the independent board of Presbyterian foreign missions. Machen and others had created that board to send out missionaries that could be trusted to preach the biblical gospel without any compromise with liberalism. Rather than accepting his suspension, Machen founded a new denomination known first as the Presbyterian Church of America, later renamed the Orthodox Presbyterian Church. Machen's movement represented numerically only a small proportion of Reformed believers in the U.S. Many conservative Reformed people remained in the PCUSA. Many belonged to older, smaller denominations, such as the Reformed Presbyterian Church of North America and Associate Reformed Presbyterian Church that descended from the Scottish Covenanters. There's also a major wing of American Calvinism with Dutch roots. The Reformed Church in America goes back to the founding of New Amsterdam in USA. The Christian Reformed Church originated in a split from the RSCA in 1822 and retained a more conservative stance than that body through which of the period since that time. In the last 40 years, however, it has been troubled by debates over biblical inerrancy, women ordination, and homosexuality, leading many of its conservative members to leave and form other denominations such as the Orthodox Christian Reformed Church and the United Reformed Church. These Scottish and Dutch groups, together with the conservatives in the USA, respected what Machen and Westminster were doing, though they also supported their own denomination now seminaries. A small Reformed denomination of German background, the Reformed Church in the USA, used Westminster for many years as the main institution for training its pastoral candidates. There are also, excuse me, they've taken light. Moses, let me put you on. Please, can you make some comment while I restore our power here? Moses, are you there? Hello, Moses. Okay, just give me 5 minutes. 1 minute. I'll put power on now. Okay, Moses is not yet here. Okay, so let me just try to finish this. I don't know why this Moses thing is just. Let me try to finish this. In 1973, there was a split in the Presbyterian Church US, the southern counterpart of the PCUSA, from which Machen departed, essentially for the same reason as the Machen split, opposition to liberal theology. Many of those who left the PCUS formed the Presbyterian Church in America, PCA. Machen's movement did not represent all of these elements of Reformed Christianity, but it had a major influence on all of them. Indeed, it can. Sorry. Moses, are you there?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes. I just want to finish this long paragraph before I get your thoughts. So please just try to listen up. Are you listening?
Yes.
Okay. Machen himself made an effort to bring together American, Scottish, and Dutch tradition at Westminster. The original faculties included R.B. Kuiper, Ned Stonehouse, and Cornelius Van Til, all of whom were raised in the CRC. Another major influence on the seminary was biblical theologian Gordius Bos, another Dutchman from CRC, who taught at Princeton and remained there after 1929. Though he had strong sympathies with Westminster. The Scots were also represented in the early faculty by systematic theologian John Murray, who maintained his British citizenship, though he taught in America until his retirement in 1967. Murray held to some of the distinctives, such as the exclusive use of psalm versions in worship of the group in America, influenced by Scottish covenanters such as the RPCNA, though he himself was a minister at the OPC. There was also theological diversity in Machen's movement, which I believe he cultivated intentionally. Alan McRae of the Westminster faculty was pre-millennial, later serving as an editor of the New Scofield Reference Bible, a major work of dispensational theology. Paul Woolley was also pre-millennial, but without dispensational sympathies. Machen himself was post-millennial, which was the majority position of the old Princeton faculty. The rest of the Westminster faculty was amillennial. So far as I can tell, though John Murray leaned on a post-millennial direction in later years. Other premillennialists served with Machen on the independent board for Presbyterian Foreign Mission. The premillennial served as a link between Machen's conventional Presbyterianism and the broader current of American evangelicalism. This diversity, both ethnic and doctrinal, brought many influences to bear on Westminster and the OPC. It also helped Westminster to have significant influence upon many reform bodies and upon American evangelicalism generally. Old Princeton had already been regarded by many evangelicals as their theological leader. Even many non-Calvinists looked to the writing of Princeton professors like B.B. Warfield, Robert Dick Wilson, and Machen himself for scholarship, defenses of biblical authority and inerrancy. Louis Sperry Schaffer, president of the Dallas Theological Seminary, corresponded with Machen, urging closer ties between the two seminaries. Okay, upon the Reformed Episcopal Church, among the Scottish bodies like the RPCNA, upon the PCA, and upon the individual and churches of Reformed Baptist persuasion. This thing is very long. Okay, I'm about to finish. Just 3 more paragraphs. Westminster graduates taught at seminaries such as Covenant, Goddard Gordon's Conwell, Trinity, Biblical, Mid-American, Reformed Episcopal. When Fuller Theological Seminary was organized in 1947, it used at first a curriculum very much like the Westminster, and several Westminster graduates served on the early faculty. Reformed Theological Seminary, founded in Jackson, Mississippi in 1966, now with 3 campuses and numerous extension centers, readily acknowledges a large depth to Westminster in curriculum, theological emphasis, and faculties. Westminster faculties and graduates have continued to provide leadership to the Reformed theological world. I believe it can be said that although Machen's Westminster was not a large seminary, it was one of the most important influences, perhaps the most important institutional influence upon conservative Reformed theology in the 20th century. Machen died of pneumonia in 1937, disappointed that his new denomination was already showing signs of division. Machen's children were theological battlers, and when the battle against liberalism in the PCU USA appeared to be over, they found other theological battles to fight. Up to the present time, these and other battles have continued within the movement, and in my judgment, that is the story of conservative evangelical Reformed theology in 20th century in America. In the rest of this essay, I will discuss that theological warfare, distinguishing 21 areas of debate. So we do not have Moses just when we needed him to make a comment. So now, the person again that is writing all of this is John Frame. John Frame himself taught at, I think he taught earlier, if I can remember, he taught earlier at Princeton, something like that. But he was Reformed Baptist. Eventually, when the Reformed Baptist people started their seminary in 1966, John Frame joined them. And Brother Moses, Jesutola, told me that he did connect with John Frame in the 1960s. Got in touch with him recently through Facebook. And when Frame asked where he was reaching him from, he said that he was reaching him from Nigeria. And then Frame replied that he has visited Nigeria before in 1960, okay, and that he was a lover of Nigeria, and he was also praying for Nigeria. Theologizing subject. That's my friend Caleb Rees left some comment. He said, "You're cutting at sorry." Oh, there. He said, "I'm cutting out really badly. I don't know why this cutting is happening. And I've changed my internet, so I do not know why the cutting is still happening. I do not know why it is happening. I noticed in my last broadcast it happened, and that's the reason why I changed my internet. So I do not expect it. So, theologizing subject, can you let me know if the cutting is still going on? If it's still going on, I might just change my laptop." So Moses is back. Moses, are you there? Hello, Moses. Oh, there. So we have very bad internet here. I don't know why. Caleb, can you let me know if this thing is still cutting? If it's still cutting, let me know. The internet is really bad at Moses' side. You know what, gentlemen? I'm going to bring this broadcast to a close, and then I'm going to check the video. If the cutting is still there, I'm going to start again. Okay, so just give me like 15 minutes to restart the broadcast. I'll bring it to an end now.